Step inside the Indiana State Penitentiary, and you are immediately struck by an overwhelming sense of isolation. Towering stone walls, some reaching as high as 35 feet, encircle the facility. Their somber surfaces, weathered by decades of harsh Midwestern winters, are not just barriers. They are a constant, silent reminder that the world outside is painfully out of reach. Life within is a study in regimentation. The day begins before dawn, announced not by the sun, but by the clanging of metal doors and the sharp echo of guards' boots on concrete. Inmates are roused from their bunks in cramped, windowless cells, many barely larger than a walk-in closet. Here, plumbing is minimal and privacy is a forgotten luxury. The heavy iron bars, the chipped paint, and the perpetual shadows create an atmosphere thick with tension and monotony. Meals are marked by the distant ring of a bell. Inmates line up, shuffling silently into a cavernous mess hall. Breakfast might be a ladle of watery oatmeal and a stale piece of bread. Conversation is hushed, observed by guards stationed along the perimeter. For some, this brief communal ritual is the only break from the crushing solitude of their cells. The long hours between morning and night are filled with work details. Historically, this penitentiary operated various labor programs, making license plates, sewing uniforms, or tending the prison's own gardens. These jobs were meant to instill discipline, but often felt like endless, repetitive toil. Still, many preferred it to the alternative, spending up to 23 hours a day locked down, staring at the same four walls, lost in a labyrinth of their own thoughts. Recreation is a privilege, not a right. A brief stint in the yard might mean pacing along cracked concrete beneath a web of razor wire. Even here, the atmosphere can shift in an instant.
Tensions run high in such confined quarters. A careless word or a lingering glance can spark a conflict that smolders for weeks. Into this world of gray routine and quiet desperation, a new inmate arrived. His name was Viktor, and his presence was an anomaly. Standing just over 6 feet tall, he cut an imposing figure. His sharp cheekbones, piercing gray eyes, and a profound, steely silence set him apart from the moment he stepped onto the yard. Guards and inmates alike whispered about his past. Rumors swirled that he was a master thief, arrested after a daring heist that had embarrassed the authorities. Yet he carried himself not with the swagger of a common criminal, but with the unnerving calm of a philosopher. Lebedev's reputation grew within the prison walls. He never raised his voice, never begged for favors, and never showed fear. He would sit in his cell, quietly observing, reading whatever scraps of newsprint he could find, and listening far more than he spoke. In the mess hall and on the exercise yard, he became a magnet for the desperate and the hopeful. Some sought his protection, others just wanted to stand near his enigmatic presence. The guards were wary. Lebedev's file was marked with warnings: highly intelligent, charismatic, dangerous. Yet he was unfailingly polite, never giving them a clear reason for punishment. It was during a late-night lockdown, when the air was thick with the silent anxieties of hundreds of men, that the whispers about Viktor Lebedev took on a new, unsettling dimension. In a hushed conversation with a trusted few, he revealed the source of his unbreakable calm. He claimed that etched into his very soul was a number, 666-17. He called it part of a contract. To understand the weight of such a statement, we must first look at the number itself. 666, now infamous as the number of the beast, has a complex and feared history.
Its appearance in the book of Revelation, chapter 13, verse 18, reads, "Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. That number is 666. This cryptic passage has sparked centuries of debate, interpretation, and dread. In the ancient world, numbers were more than mathematical symbols. They were imbued with layers of meaning, political, spiritual, and mystical. Early Christian communities used a system called gematria, where letters also represented numbers. Through this system, 666 has been linked to the name Nero Caesar, the infamous Roman emperor. The number, then, was likely a coded critique of oppressive power, a secret whispered among the persecuted. To confess this number aloud was an act of profound courage, a way to encode resistance and hope into a single sequence of digits. But Viktor's number had an addendum, 17, a detail that twisted the ancient symbol into something personal, something new, deepening the mystery of his claim. And he called it a contract. What could that possibly mean? To find out, we must travel back in time to the very origins of such agreements. In ancient Mesopotamia, clay tablets recorded the earliest known contracts, with numbers used to specify goods and durations. These numbers were not just practical, they held symbolic weight. The number 7, for example, was considered sacred, used to denote completeness or divine approval. Its inclusion implied a spiritual guarantee. In Roman times, contracts became more formalized. Roman law required at least 2 witnesses for a contract to be valid, an idea that numbers could define obligations and limit risks. Over the centuries, numbers in contracts gained a reputation for certainty. In medieval Europe, the dozen became a standard trading unit. The term baker's dozen, 13 instead of 12, even emerged from contracts to safeguard against accusations of shortchanging. Numbers shaped the very heart of these agreements, each digit carrying echoes of ancient practices. By calling his number a contract, Viktor Lebedev implied a binding, unbreakable agreement, a set of terms and consequences that governed his existence. While Viktor spoke of a mystical number, every inmate in the Indiana Penitentiary is bound by a more mundane one, their prison identification number. This sequence of digits casts a long shadow over every aspect of daily life, shaping identity, interactions, and fate. For many, the prison number becomes their new name. Officers, staff, and even fellow inmates often use the number instead of a name. Responding to Inmate 463529, report to Block D, day after day, strips away individuality, reinforcing feelings of depersonalization and invisibility. On a practical level, this number controls everything. It is used for tracking movements, distributing meals, managing commissary accounts, and assigning work duties. A single clerical error can lead to missed medications, lost mail, or wrongful disciplinary actions. This number becomes a constant reminder of the system's total control, influencing a person's identity and relationships long after the cell doors have closed. It is a brand that signifies a life reduced to a file, a statistic. And so we are left with the echoes of Viktor Lebedev's story, reverberating through the cold, concrete halls. Was his claim a delusion born of confinement, or a truth only he could understand? Was his number, 666-17, a source of power, or the mark of a curse he was condemned to bear? These are questions that refuse simple answers. Prisons are more than just places of confinement. They are microcosms of our society's struggles and failures. For every person incarcerated, a ripple effect is felt by families and communities. This raises the central question of our justice system. Is it a tool for rehabilitation or merely for punishment? With nearly 2/3 of released prisoners being rearrested within 3 years, we are forced to confront uncomfortable truths about who is most affected and why. Are we, as a society, truly achieving justice, or are we perpetuating cycles of harm? The story of one man and his number is a reminder of the countless stories still hidden behind these walls, waiting to be told. The answers aren't easy, but it is in the asking, in sitting with these echoes and uncertainties, that we find the possibility for something better, if we choose to listen.